I'd like to call the regular City Commission meeting to order of Tuesday, September 4th, and ask all of you to rise and join me in the Pledge to Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have copies of the agenda available at the recorder's table as well as at the back of the room. We have a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that we approve this evening's agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We have an agenda. Approval of the minutes of the regular City Commission meeting of August 14th.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Changes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Communications. We have a couple communications. One of them is a resignation from the Environmental Advisory Committee that we need to accept. Do we have a motion to accept that?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Any other comments on the communications?
Are we going to advertise for this vacancy then?
I put something in the e-blast that went out on Friday,
Great.
I think. Yeah. And we do have one citizen interest form that's already on file.
Okay.
Okay, I see our County Commissioner, Commissioner Zach, is here with us this evening. Do you have any comments for us?
I do, thank you. It's Helene Zach, County Commissioner. I want to give you some updates. I want to remind you that we are kicking off this live Healthy Oakland program, which is a discount program for health issues. It's not insurance. There is a newer prescription discount card, a dental discount program, as well as other health discount programs. And if you're interested, there's a lot of different media happening. The easiest way to find it is to go to www.oakgov.com, go under Board of Commissioners right now, my name, and you'll see a link to it, but there will be other materials being posted through the Oakland County Health Department. We've had this prescription health card for years, but we have a new vendor. We're back to the National Association of Counties doing it, and it's really a wonderful benefit. Even if you have insurance and your insurance doesn't pay for a particular medication, you can use the discount card on some medication as well. We have in the newer service in Oakland County a youth mobile crisis team that is being offered in conjunction with our Oakland County Health and Common Ground. And when you can't resolve a crisis in your own family, you can call 877-800-1650, and for types of youth aggression, property threats, loss of control. So it's a mobile treatment resource. As one of our city commissioners knows, we did proclaim an election study group through the Board of Commissioners, bipartisan initiative. They had their first meeting last Friday, and they are looking at the whole elections process. They have interviewed local clerks. There's been a lot of voters filing independent incident reports. And again, we want to make sure that we have the best process going. So I think it's a positive development. On September 5th, there's going to be a free senior day at the zoo from 10 to 3. So I encourage seniors, if you want your day to go in, We also are kicking off a new human trafficking hotline, which is 888-373-7888, or you can text Be Free, which is 233733, help or info. And yes, we do have a problem of human trafficking in Oakland County, and we've had this collaborative initiative going on now for about a year or two. And this is part of the help out there. Finally, for veterans, we have new services for veterans. Certainly, Oakland County has a veterans office that is actually headed by one of our residents. But through the Oakland Community Health Network, we now have a veteran navigator. His name is Chaka McDonald, and he can be reached at 248-764-4443, and he's there to help veterans navigate mental health, more support groups, housing, employment, things like that. Under his supervision, there is going to be Veterans and Military Family Enrichment Day on October 6th from 11 to 3 p.m. at our local Catalpa Park. And there's going to be on-site workshops hosted by the Red Cross. We're going to have Southfield Police and Fire Departments, activities for children, and other things going on. Free food provided. This is again for local veterans. So, any questions for me?
Is that mental health for veterans also available in Wayne County? Do you know?
Well, it is state funding. It's a grant that came through to our county.
Okay,
So I would hope that it's
Probably
also
okay.
in Wayne
All right.
County as well.
okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Public participation. Also an opportunity for the public to comment on anything that is not on the agenda.
I have a question about the,
Please.
Jay Schwartz at 10014 Ludlow since 1965. I don't believe Commissioner Iverson, you and I have met before. Anyway, I just had a question. I freely confess I'm operating under a lack of information here, as I was only made aware of this item about a half hour ago regarding the reading of the ordinance regarding wireless equipment on the public right-of-way.
Actually, that is an agenda item, so if you want to keep your comment. If
No
that's-
problem.
Okay, thank you.
We're cool.
All right, seeing no other public participation is closed, and we'll move on to our regular items of business. Agenda item number 1, it's a matter of considering the Amogo Bike Sharing Grant Program.
Yes, Huntington Woods has the opportunity to participate in a grant program that would expand the bike sharing program that is right now just centered in Detroit. It's called MOGO. This is a bike sharing program where docks are located around the area. Individuals get on the app, they can check a bike out, they return it someplace else. And we are looking at there's different going to be locations in around the area. They are Ferndale, Royal Oak, Berkeley, and ourselves are potentially participating in it. And Oak Park. So there are two costs. One is a one-time only cost for the grant sharing, which is approximately $5,274 for one 3-bike station. It covers the cost of the bikes, the kiosk, and the docking station. And then there is an annual maintenance cost, so that there's a different organization that operates the program. They take care of the bikes, they move them around where they need to be moved around. So this is not anything that would require any city participation in terms of our employees. And right now, that cost is $89 a month per dock, which is about $3,000 a year. The MOGO organization is taking a look at expanding the sponsorship right now for the Detroit bikes to see if they are interested in also sponsoring the bikes that would be out in the suburbs, so that $89 could possibly come down. At this point, we don't have that actual cost of what it would be if, in fact, they were able to expand that sponsorship. So I have this on the agenda today just to get feedback from residents, because there is that one-time only cost, and see whether or not there is interest in going forward with it. We could take direction from the commission to see if we could get some funding to offset that cost, and really looking for feedback from residents on whether or not they think that this would be a service that would be a benefit to the residents.
Okay, so let's start with comments from the public and we'll go from there.
Helene Zach, 8320 Hendry Boulevard. I've been sitting at the table since the inception of the idea and represent many of the communities that are in there. And I think it's a terrific idea. And one of the things that's been discussed, and I serve on SEMCOG, is many communities have gone and plan to go and ask for these sponsorships for the 3,000, and there's been a lot of corporate interest in this. And so I think that we can look at some of our residents, Beaumont Hospital being a likely candidate, other businesses to look at supporting that cost of the docking stations. So I hope that that wouldn't be a reason not to pass it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Justin Lyons, Planning Manager for the City of Ferndale. So I helped write the grant and worked with the group to move the project and grant process forward. So I'm here to answer any questions. I think Amy pretty much covered everything off. The biggest thing that I think our own Ferndale City Council had talked about was, the operations cost and concern with that, because that is an annual cost. And essentially, as Helene mentioned as well, we expect that the sponsorships will offset the majority of that cost for the monthly operations cost or annual cost. So there's probably more detail we can provide on that going forward, but that's at least how the model has worked so far in Detroit, that sponsorship is really carrying the weight on that operational cost. Thank you.
Again, Jay Schwartz, 10014 Ludlow. In terms of the entire project, I would have a question. Has there been any formal studies been done of any kind to show utilization, to show market demand, or is there demand? Is there anybody asking for this service? I have no fundamental objection to it, as long as we can demonstrate a need, and or is it a case of if you build it, they will come? However, my sole concern would be that there is zero net cost to the taxpayer of the city. If there's any cost to the taxpayers, then I would be in opposition to it. Otherwise, I am neutral on the project. Thank you.
Hi, Jeff Spakowski, 10155 LaSalle. Here in support of MOGO. I'm a MOGO user. I attend a lot of the weekly bike rides, Fat Kids, Slow Roll, things like that. Take my car down, rent a bike, use it. I would love to have MOGO here in Huntington Woods, because as a one-car family, I often don't have a vehicle to go do grocery shopping. So it'd be wonderful to be able to go do a little light work, bring groceries back, drop the bike back off. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments? But the city commission, I do have a question for you, Justin.
Sure.
As far as the sponsorship goes, is that something that your group is working to develop interested sponsors for the whole suburb community, or how is that?
Sure. The initial operation in Detroit is primarily sponsored by a few larger name sponsors, Henry Ford and things like that, or a few other companies like that. For an expansion of that service, though I believe that those sponsors do have the first right of refusal on an expansion. But there was interest around the table for opportunities for local municipalities and local businesses to sponsor, and so that would be worked out through the contract with the operator. So that's something that would come before you as well. As part of this interlocal group, there would be an agreement that comes forth that has that sort of detail in it. But there is a carve-out for that, I think, in the future, but it's not completely ironed out yet just because MOGO is so new, at least in the Detroit market.
So is this something that would be developed before we have to make a final decision on this, or
It
what's
would-
the timing on it?
It would be defined as part of that interlocal agreement, so that would be coming, basically we're finalizing what those agreements look like, and we'll bring them to all the communities in the next 2 months.
Mhm.
And so at that point is when, then it would be really a firm, yes, we would like to participate as a community, and here's what those details are. But yeah, I think there was interest around the entire group for some local opportunity.
Okay.
Jeff,
And there's one more question, and their
Okay.
sponsorship dollars you're really aiming at covering the maintenance costs, the annual maintenance costs over the
Exactly.
is it a 5-year contract?
Three.
Three is where we thought we would start,
Okay.
yes. And
So
so,
the upfront cost for the kiosk and the bikes would not be covered by that?
correct,
Okay.
correct. And so I don't think I mentioned it earlier, but the program also was funded 80% by the TAP Transportation Alternatives Program through the state of Michigan, Michigan Department of Transportation and SEMCOG. So 20% is what each of the communities is contributing.
How many bikes is Ferndale going to use, or how many sets of 3? And what is the value of the bike program? Because a lot of people say here Huntington Woods is wealthy, and everybody has a bike.
Okay.
I do not believe everybody has a bike. I would agree that many people are wealthy in the city. But what's considered the value of the bikes that you've heard or that?
Sure. I'm not sure the specific value, what it would normally cost for a bike.
No, I mean to a community.
Oh, to a
What's the
community?
value?
So the program really is tailored around short trips for folks. You can rent a bike for a daily pass and cruise around on that, and then after 24 hours there is a fee added on, but it's really centered on, I think like the resident mentioned here, short trips like going to the grocery store or just in between office at lunch, things like that. So it provides an opportunity for folks that don't have their own bike, or they're somewhere where they don't have a bike. If you're live in Huntington Woods and you work in Ferndale, you could use your membership in both spots. But also, it allows for an opportunity for someone who maybe doesn't know how to maintain a bike, or just doesn't want to buy a bike of their own and just uses it from time to time. It allows them that short-term type use.
How many bikes is Ferndale going to have?
We're looking at right now 5 stations, and then we're doing some of the 3-station and 3 bike and 5 bike stations. And so we're roughly around 35 to 30 bikes in total.
Okay.
So there's right now it's still, I would say, a rough estimate for folks, but a pretty well educated estimate, I should say. But about 145 bikes total in the system, not counting what is already existing in the city of Detroit. And then I think that equates to roughly 29 to 30 more stations in total.
Do we have the ability, if we place a station in one location and we find out it's not appropriate, to move that?
You do. The stations, for the most part, kind of are designed to be on a plate, essentially, that you can move. Of course, there's some cost to move that, but typically we try to use existing parking spaces or areas that already have concrete, so you don't have to pour concrete in the majority of the time. So they are movable. Just paying someone to move it is really probably the key cost there. Yeah, but they're meant to be flexible. The ones in Detroit certain ones have been moved around based on just the first month seeing where they're being used and where they're not.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
So I've received emails from residents who were in support of this and in opposition to it. The opposition seemed to stem around the use of taxpayer money for bikes, that there was some question about whether or not they would be used by city residents and whether that was appropriate. That seemed to be sort of the crux of those who were opposed to this program. So my thought is, how can we make this cost neutral to the city? Would the men's club be willing to perhaps maybe come up with the money to fund the initial acquisition costs, and then through sponsorships, could we pay for, that roughly $3,200 ongoing cost, whether it's we approach, sponsors that are already in the system, or a sponsor like Beaumont Hospital, Flagstar Bank, who we do our banking with, and, talk to some of these folks who, may want to pick up sponsorship. I mean, for me, I really like to see this be cost neutral to the city, and especially for that first 3 years. And then if we see that it is of significant, benefit, expanding it, and maybe seeing about adding additional bikes or an additional station, if it proves within that first 3 years to be valuable and cost neutral to the city. So I support the concept. I just think we need to, get a little more detail when we get down to that interlocal agreement at our future meeting, and just see how we can make this happen without using tax dollars.
Any other comments?
Yeah,
Commissioner?
if my reading is correct, the TAP grant is close to $500,000. It's 400 plus.
Right, the project total is 708,000.
Oh, 708. I'm
Project
sorry.
total, but yeah.
Okay. What I'm concerned about is 3 bikes for a population of 6,000 people, I think is pretty tiny. And I think the bikes, I think we ought to have 4 to 5 sets. One at City Hall, one at Recreation, one at Peasley Park, one at Statue Park, one at Lincoln Pembroke Concord Park. So they're throughout the city, and people then can go to events or things either in the city or near the city. I think that bikes add to a community, especially bikes for adults. Sometimes we look for exercise options, and I do have a bike at home. Now, I haven't ridden it in 20 years, and the tires,
20.
yeah, well, what the heck, when I was a little kid. Anyway, with that bike, that's maybe in a house, it would cost me a hell of a lot more money to repair the bike than to take 10 or 15 trips. And if it was, for example, at Peasley Park, it'd be a 1-block walk for me. Instead of driving, I actually could get exercise and ride to the rec center or ride to City Hall. From what I've seen and what I've read, bikes and these kinds of programs are constructive and help a community. The biggest problem is identifying where's the location so you get a reasonable amount of use. But I would hope we get more than 1 station, 3 to 5. And that again, I don't have a problem with saying we need to find the funding from outside our current budget. But I think we ought to ask, and get some input from the community. If we were to get bikes, where would you want them? So there's a distribution, and at the same time, you don't want too many, at least in the beginning. So I would hope we go for at least 3, but preferably 5 sets. What you're looking at is the addition of about $18,000 in expenses over 3 years, plus that initial $15,000 for the thing. But where do you get for $32,000 or under $50,000 a lot of exercise for people that haven't used it, and a little bit more creativity on how you move around? Not everybody buys a car these days. Not everybody's car works.
Mr. Mayor, I just had a question. So it sounds like my friend Mayor Coulter and the Ferndale City Council, they had similar concerns about this ongoing cost. So is the goal for those suburban communities, Oak Park, Royal Oak, Berkeley, Ferndale, ourselves, is the goal through sponsorships to just wipe out that ongoing cost? And are you confident that we can do that?
That's correct. We're, based on Mogo's experience in Detroit, we're pretty confident that, that it could be all covered, mostly through probably a large sponsorship and then filling in and, determining that local piece of where local sponsors could plug in. But yes, that's the goal, and that's part of how I think Ferndale City Council chose to move forward. And just wanted to make sure, I think I misspoke earlier. Ferndale went with 7 stations and 29 bikes, just for perspective. But
As far as the initial grant application was concerned, Huntington Woods was slated for 1 kiosk and 3 bikes. Can that be adjusted at this time and still get the funding, the 80% match?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So this is kind of the prime window to do that. Essentially, the SEMCOG and MDOT are looking for the communities to solidify things with this interlocal agreement in the next 2 months, and that's when everybody would be firmly in.
As far as Huntington Woods looking for help or sponsorship for the initial cost with the kiosk, is that something that we're restricted not to do right now because of the other sponsors, or is it something that we can ask about and freely offer them an opportunity?
My understanding of it is that you could look for a nonprofit or anyone to fund the bikes. The sponsorship part would probably be something we would have to figure out. But if say a nonprofit like the men's club wanted to fund the bikes initially, then a sponsor could come in later and do the other piece. But that's something we're willing to look at, I'd say.
There is no liability past 3 years on this project.
Correct.
I mean, Mr. Mayor, if it's free, I mean, it's not gonna cost us anything. I'm willing to entertain more stations, obviously. And I trust our city manager to work with the city managers in the other communities to come up with, appropriate locations and how many, you're quite a bit larger than we are. And, you're looking at 7 stations. I'm not sure we need 5, but maybe a reasonable number would be appropriate. Again, if there's no cost to the city, why wouldn't we look at, additional locations if this is gonna be covered through sponsorship? So, I trust our city manager will work with you and counterparts in the other cities, and then a few months from now, come at us with an interlocal agreement, that has all this in place and where the funding model is coming from outside sources.
Royal Oak also has 6 stations in the initial proposal. I'd be curious to know if one of those was at the Detroit Zoo.
And do you know where Royal Oak's bike stations are going?
I believe there was one.
Okay.
I think they were trying to tie that in with the fast bus stop there in
Okay.
the zoo, so I believe so. And actually, that's a great point. So though we've talked about some potential station siting, Mogo actually secured a grant from the Better Bike Share Partnership to do some community engagement. So there would be, a few opportunities for communities in each of the communities to come together and do some community engagement and station selection. And actually, on the Mogo website right now, some people have already found there's a map there where you can start plugging and making suggestions of where stations can go.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for all the information.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
All right, so the point today was just to get feedback from residents. So what I'm hearing is go forth, raise funds, and get as many bike stations as you can afford, right?
No, not as many, but
As long as it doesn't involve expenditure
Yeah.
of city funds, as Mr. Schwartz correctly noted, fine. But, I personally have seen these, like in Chicago and places with dense urban populations where it's a much different scenario. I mean, number one, I believe this is a seasonal situation here, and it's, at best 6 months, riding a bicycle in the dead of winter. As somebody who did it till he was 16 years old, I can tell you, it ain't easy. And it's also dangerous and so forth, but that's not it. It's just, I think everybody, as long as it doesn't, as long as we're not using city funds for the project, great. If we're using city funds for the project, I am very dubious about the demographic of Huntington Woods for this idea. Nobody disputes all the good things that Jeff said about bikes and so forth, or gentlemen indicated, I agree with them fine. But not as, I just very dubious about how many people in this city, as Jay noted, how many people have asked for it. The first time I read about this, I didn't care much for the idea. And I'm like I said, you can't be against something that wouldn't cost us anything. And if that's the case, great. If we have to fork out money for it, no. And I'm not so sure I favor asking the men's club for this kind of a project, but that's not my call. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right, item number 2 is a matter of consideration of lifting the 180-day moratorium on short-term rentals for recommendation of the planning commission.
Yes, this was a 180-day moratorium put in place on allowing short-term rentals like Airbnbs in the community to give the planning commission an opportunity to study it and see whether or not there's something that should be approved or prohibited or regulated in any way. And at the last planning commission meeting, they decided that because Airbnbs or short-term rentals weren't causing an issue right now, that there really wasn't anything to study. So they recommended lifting the moratorium, and just at your place this evening, the city attorney had put together a resolution that would lift that moratorium. And with respect to Airbnbs, they would be permitted, and if they did become an issue, if there was for instance, a loud party, then it would be handled by one of our nuisance ordinances, just like we would if it was a homeowner that was having a large party. And not have any regulations on them unless, for some reason, they do become an issue, and then we can go back and study the issue at a future time. So the resolution, I'm sorry for the short notice, but it basically just says that the planning commission considered the matter, recommending that the moratorium be lifted, and then you would be using a resolution to put the moratorium on and using a resolution to take the moratorium off, if that's what you decided to do.
Do we have a motion
Mr.
to
Mayor?
accept it?
Oh, go ahead.
I would move that we approve the resolution as indicated. I just, as Ms. Sullivan noted, I don't have any desire to be a solution out looking for problems to solve, and in the absence of a complaint or an issue or a problem, I don't see this as a necessary regulation, so I support the resolution.
I'll second that.
Any public comment? Any questions or comments at the commission? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3 is a matter of consideration of the health insurance premium opt-out for 2019 in accordance with Public Act 152.
This is an item that comes before you annually. Public Act 152 was adopted by the legislature in 2011. They want employees to participate in cost sharing for health insurance premiums. And the level set in Public Act 152 is at a 20% cost share for employees. We have contracts in place that require employees to contribute 5% toward their healthcare premiums, and also for the high deductible program that we participate in. So we do need to opt out of Public Act 152 because we are not at that 20% threshold. And it needs to be done annually.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that the city of Huntington Woods exempt itself from the publicly funded insurance contribution at 2011 Public Act 152.
Second?
Any public comment? Any comments or questions from the commission?
Mr. Mayor, I just continue to go on record as this is another attempt by Lansing to tell us apparently what's best for us. And we've always negotiated with our employees in good faith and certainly made lots of headway in that regard and don't need Lansing dictating to us what we need to or need not to do. This is clearly a grab at local control, and so I have no problem voting to opt out.
Any others?
I second what Joe said.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4 is a second reading of the wireless communication ordinance that we read at the last meeting.
Yeah, what this does is it places within our zoning ordinance a maximum height for utility poles. That is something that was gonna be exempt in legislation that is being proposed in the legislature right now, that unless the communities have a height limitation on utility poles, wireless providers could put poles up as high as they wanted to. So this just puts in our zoning ordinance what the maximum height is, which is 40 feet.
We have a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second?
Any public comment?
Yes, just by way of clarification here, and again, I apologize, I was only made aware of this issue earlier this evening. This is strictly an ordinance to regulate the height and not who or what can go on there.
That's correct.
Okay. By way of background, especially for Commissioner Iverson, I am, in addition to being a degreed electrical engineer, I've been a licensed amateur radio operator since 1974, continuously, and done a lot of work in emergency communications. And I was just concerned that a side effect of this, unless there was a specific carve-out for amateur radio as defined by Part 97 of the Rules and Regulations of the Federal Communications Commission, could somehow have a side effect in limiting our ability to provide emergency communications in time of need, or to prepare for them, or to conduct exercises. But if this is just strictly related to utility poles themselves,
In the right of way.
yeah, it wouldn't really have anything, because we tend to avoid them for safety reasons anyway, because you don't know what's on that pole, even if you do, and if you do know, you're not really sure you want to mess with it. So, thank you for the clarification. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the commission? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5 is a slight adjustment to some of the city commission scheduled meeting dates for the remainder of 2018.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we adopt the new schedule for City Commission for the remainder of this year.
Second.
Any public comment? Commission comment?
These are the dates that we agreed to adjust to.
They are, and this is returning us to our normal schedule, which is for the most part, the 3rd Tuesday of the month. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Please adjust your calendars accordingly. Reports and minutes. We have 4 sets of reports and minutes. Do we have a motion to receive and file?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Reports and minutes are received and filed. Warrant number 341, do we have a motion to accept subject to full audit?
So moved.
Second?
Any comments or questions? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. City Manager's report.
Yeah, I just want to let the residents know about 2 upcoming meetings. One is very soon, it's gonna be this Wednesday, and then the next one I wanna talk about is October 4th. So the one this Wednesday is a meeting that's geared for residents that are 60 and older. Seniors are putting together a drop-in informal gathering to talk about different subject matters that interest them. It's very, very informal, but it's an opportunity for seniors to get together and have a social get-together. So on Wednesday, the guest speaker is going to be Susie Kinnan, who works at our library and does a lot of our website and online services, and she's going to talk about different services that the library can offer seniors that are online, how to access material, and also some IT work as well. And then the meeting on October 4th is important. It will be our public information meeting on the upcoming sewer and road bond referendum. We're going to talk a little bit about the sewer cleaning project, the televising project, the repairs that the engineers have suggested, and the bond resolution that will be on the November 6th ballot to fund those sewer repairs. So again, the meeting will be Thursday, October 4th. It'll start at 7 o'clock. It'll be here at City Hall, and we will be mailing out flyers and an FAQ to residents so that they have an opportunity to read that material before the meeting on the 4th. And that's it.
Any questions for the City Manager?
Will we be recording and televising both programs?
Yes.
Commissioners' remarks? Where did I start last? Commissioner Rozell.
Keep it brief, Mr. Mayor. I promise. We are going to be filming another episode of Commissioner's Corner in the very near future with our city manager and public works director to talk about the sewer and road bond proposal in November and get some information out on that proposal for benefit of the residents. So that'll be the next episode, so look for it in the coming months. Thanks.
Commissioner Olsman.
Well, just a couple things. I would indicate how delighted I was last week when the Free Press reported that they're going to put a brewery in on Gardner and 11 Mile in Oak Park. I've been waiting 17 years for that kind of development on 11 Mile. I think it's terrific, not just for Oak Park, but for Berkeley and Huntington Woods. It's just good for the area as a whole, because usually when something like that goes in, something else good follows it. And there's a big need for the development of those properties along there, and I'm glad to see it happen. It's a great thing for Oak Park. It comes along with the improvement here to the studio salon or whatever, Liz Duroven, the name she's given to her building, which is beautiful, looks great. And there were some people that questioned our involvement in taking Sam's off the market and preventing it from being blighted out. Well, I offer you Exhibit A as a testament to good government and the accomplishment of that. The development of the old plant across the street, across from the church, which is now Drought, is a beautiful building and an enhancement to the community as a whole. So I'm really very pleased by those things. And like I said, I've been waiting 17 years on 11 Mile. Not how long my office has been there to see something good going in there, so I'm delighted by it. And lastly, starting on Sunday night, many of us and many residents of the city will be celebrating Rosh Hashanah. So I wish all of those who are celebrating Lashana Tova, happy and healthy New Year to you and your families. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Jenks.
On October 1st and 2nd, there will be a Grant Writing USA program again.
I already signed up.
We already have? Good. Now, to save you money, you can ask for a scholarship. They have them. On September 14th at 5:45, there will be a grand reopening of Scotia Park. And I'm assuming everybody is invited to the ribbon cutting. I'm pleased on the Mogo bikes. I hope we will be able to get more than one set, so we won't just place them in destinations, but there will also be places where folks can start from. I think that's very, very beneficial, and I think it's what cities do. Other than that, happy holidays coming up. And I would like to thank each of you that helped contribute. Next time you see my wife, she will be bald. She is raising funds for children's cancer research.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Iverson.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Just wanted to commend Joyce Crum and Judy Rubin at the Tri-Community Coalition for a very successful evening, an informational meeting for parents of middle schoolers that just was held this past week at the library. And there's kind of a bond that we've created between our city, Berkeley, Public Safety, Huntington Woods Public Safety, and the Tri-Community Coalition as an outreach to parents about some issues such as this coming October, alcohol abuse for teenagers in high school, middle school, and also with the upcoming vote on marijuana, what that's going to look like for our children. And so I would just encourage residents to stay tuned for the library. They'll be posting when these dates and times will be, and advise the parents to get out there and take part. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. The Men's Club and Women's League are having their annual cider and donut sale. Look for flyers to come out soon, and that'll be held on Saturday, October 6th. So look for them to be out at Corners on that Saturday. Commissioner Jenks did mention the grand reopening of Scotia Park, and we have a local band that will be playing that night, the Shifters. So please come out and join the festivities and help us open up the park. With that, our meeting is adjourned.
Nice job. Nice job.